It's a major addiction in America. No, not drugs or food, but fashion. It's a $1.2 trillion industry, but what's the actual cost? Well, it's Fashion Revolution Week, a time to step back and think about the working conditions for people who make the clothes we buy. Tom Hansen set out on a journey around the world to get to the bottom of those fast fashion price tags, starting right here in New York City.
T-shirts 2 for $10, jeans for $15, shoes buy one get one half off.
I'd say yeah, it was a great deal.
All of those cheap clothes, well, they're called fast fashion. Inexpensive clothes that you can afford to fill your closet or replace over and over again.
I love shopping and I love clothes.
Yeah.
I have like 1,000 shoes.
Everybody does it, right? I mean, everybody buys these cheap clothes.
But have you ever wondered how our clothes can be made so cheaply? It's nearly impossible to do here in the United States with our restrictions on how young people can be and how many hours they can work, our minimum wage laws, and our requirements for safety. That's why you rarely see Made in the USA on any tags.
Is that ever a consideration for you guys when you think about buying clothes from, any of the stores around us?
I mean, the right answer would be yes, but I mean, clearly no.
No.
As long as you get the deal, that's what really matters.
Exactly.
But other countries don't have all those rules. I was on the hunt to discover how the clothes we buy can be made in bulk for so cheap. First, I took a look at where many of these clothes are made.
This says it was made in Indonesia,
These shoes were made in China.
made in Cambodia,
Made in Bangladesh.
Made in Bangladesh.
Made in Bangladesh.
Made in Bangladesh.
And that took me on a journey to a developing country halfway around the world. Bangladesh is one of the largest clothing producers in the world. It's become a popular place for manufacturing because of its ability to crank out huge amounts of clothing and other goods at really low prices. I met 19-year-old Pasol and his sister Nipur, who get up every day to head to work in one of the estimated 7,000 clothing factories in Bangladesh.
We walk about 5 miles each day to and from work. Yeah, it's rough, but somebody has to do it.
Pasol started stitching clothes at 16, dropping out of school because his family needed the money.
My father died when I was very young, so I didn't have the chance to have an education. So the only way to make my livelihood is to work.
If your clothes say made in Bangladesh, they could have been made by Pasol in one of the poorest countries in the world. Here in Bangladesh, clothing is king. People live on about $1.20 per day, and only a third can read.
Bangladesh is the second largest apparel exporter after China. In Bangladesh, garment exports represent 80% of the export economy.
Lots of people, cars, and factories. That's all that you see out here. The local markets boast every brand name imaginable. You've probably seen these clothes on a mannequin or online, but a missing button or defective stitch lands it here, where it's sold for next to nothing. Right here you can see 2 Kenneth Cole. Over here is an H&M. Oh, there's 2 H&M right there. Tommy Hilfiger. How much do these go for? How much? $250. These shirts are going for $250 in US dollars. According to many experts, the clothing industry in Bangladesh has helped improve people's lives, bringing in jobs and boosting the economy, providing a basic income for millions who would otherwise have nothing.
You think about Bangladesh's economic growth, its desire to move up into a middle-income country. A lot of that is fueled by garments.
But the thing that makes Bangladesh's clothing industry so successful, making clothes for cheap, also has a high and sometimes deadly cost. Some companies cut corners to save time and money, like hiring kids who work in poor, even dangerous conditions. When you go into work, do you ever think about the risks involved with working in a clothing factory?
Yeah, I mean, I get scared. The building shakes a lot, and the girls and the boys, everyone gets scared.
Tomorrow we head inside some of the factories to see what Made in Bangladesh really means for the people. Tom Hansen, Channel 1 News.
Now, when it comes to cheap clothes, well, it's an offer that's hard to refuse. And as we showed you yesterday, designers are able to give you those bargains by having the clothes made in countries where labor is cheap and not regulated. Today, Tom Hansen is back in Bangladesh with a look inside the factories that produced fast fashion.
It's almost like this dirty little secret that big brands don't want you to know about. This area kind of seems like the bowels of commercialism. The capital city of Bangladesh, Dhaka, is a center for cheap labor, paying little to workers who slave away for long hours in hazardous conditions.
So we're in a leather factory, and the conditions here are pretty poor. People aren't working with any kind of protective gloves, no shoes, and they're dealing with chemicals that are bleaching cowhide. It just kind of seems like these people don't even realize they're dealing with toxic chemicals, though.
The tanneries in Bangladesh export raw leather to fashion companies all over the world, including to some of the places that make your favorite shoes, purses, and jackets.
Just rods sticking out of the structure of this. It doesn't even really look like the building is finished.
But these factories are at the bottom of a totem pole for labor conditions.
Toxic if inhaled, harmful if swallowed, causes severe skin burns and eye damage. This is formic acid. There's no way that this is safe for human skin.
This toxic dye is dumped onto the side of the roads where people walk barefoot.
Basically smells like rotten eggs here, and that's because of all the hydrogen sulfide.
Just one example of workers putting themselves in harm's way for the products that often end up in stores around the world. This undercover video shows a factory where workers are crammed into narrow workspaces with poor lighting and ventilation. Exits are blocked by boxes and boxes of clothing, and there are no fire extinguishers. Another major safety hazard is something called a shared factory, when a bunch of small factories are stacked on top of each other in order to keep up with demand. Over time, this can lead to a collapse, something that caught global attention back in 2013.
There was one gigantic shake, and after that, I don't remember anything. I lost consciousness, and then I remember a giant pillar falling on me.
4 years ago, this week, Rana Plaza, a large clothing factory in Bangladesh, collapsed, burying its workers and marking one of the worst industrial accidents in history. Yanur was working there. She was 12 years old at the time.
I was taken to a hospital, and I kept asking, "Where's Mom? Where's Mom?" A doctor finally told me my mother was gone. She was killed in the factory.
More than 1,000 people were crushed to death that day. On top of losing her mother, Yanur had to relearn how to walk.
I honestly wonder what mistakes I made earlier to deserve this. Why is God punishing me like this? And I don't know when I'll be able to walk on my own legs. And until I'm independent, I don't know how I'll be able to go on with my own life. I miss my family.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Today, the wounds of Rana Plaza still haven't quite healed. For some families, they never will. But the tragedy did shine a spotlight on the dangers of cheap garment production.
I think that much more needs to be done. And there has to be now a practical discussion of how do you actually fix factories, especially those small factories.
Bangladesh passed laws requiring stricter rules on working conditions and regular inspections.
Now we are making again, new factories are coming up, green factories are coming up. The best factory in the world is in Bangladesh.
But critics say few of the problems have actually been fixed. Siddiqur Rahman, the president of the Bangladesh Garment Manufacturers and Exporters Association, was quick to assure us that working conditions after Rana Plaza had improved.
You can say now our almost all the factories are 100% safe.
We were able to find factories here that had safety issues, like this shared factory that was still up and running. The owner says that since the Rana Plaza disaster, his business has been hit hard. Major global brands like H&M have withdrawn orders from factories like his because of a push from labor rights groups to get shoppers like you to boycott and stop buying brands that use unsafe factories, factories that pay low wages, or ones that hire people under the age of 18.
My question is it your solution like boycotting my product? You can bring the change.
Well, a lot of people...
Is it the only way?
A lot of people would say
yes. A lot of people boycotting this, what will happen? Okay, the factory will be closed. Factory will be stop supplying now. What will happen? We'll get wearing nothing. This can be, foolish way. This cannot be the only option.
And it has forced him to consider building a brand new factory that's safer, a shift many factory owners are dealing with.
There is everywhere factories, the short factories, the knit factories, the sweater factories.
This factory owner was proud to show us his state-of-the-art mega factory. It only employs about 800 people right now, but when it's finished, it will have more than 4,500 workers.
We have followed the international regulations, all the standards, labor laws, everything to make these factories.
While these changes might make workers safer and better paid, there is a downside. The rules also make the clothing more expensive to manufacture. So some companies have moved their operations to countries with no regulations and even cheaper labor. And so starts the same cycle in another country to feed our fast fashion addiction. Tom Hansen, Channel 1 News.
All right, fast fashion, cheap bargains, and cheap labor. All week we've shown you how companies make cheap clothes, but we also saw the high price and toll on the people who make them and the environment. Today, Asia Celestino has a story of one company changing the tide and turning fast fashion into sustainable fashion.
From the runway to celebs to your closet. For many, following the latest fashion trend is an obsession.
There is a thrill. We're used to this. Oh, I have a date tonight. Let me go buy a whole new outfit.
That's where fast fashion comes in. Cheap prices and endless options provide a way to seemingly keep up not only with the Kardashians, but the Hadids, the Smiths, and any other celeb.
There's more and more of this idea that we should constantly be wearing different stuff for all the different photographs and this documentation of our lives in the way that paparazzi document celebrities.
But fast fashion goes far beyond what we wear. It's taking a slow but steady toll on our environment.
If the fashion industry doesn't change, we're going to see more protests, more factory fires, and from an environmental standpoint, the price of cotton is going to go up because demand is going to outstrip supply, and there's not going to be enough water to cultivate all of the cotton that we're generating. There's not going to be enough oil to produce all of the polyester that we need to feed the fashion industries. When I say that the way the fashion industry works currently is unsustainable, I mean that literally. It can't continue doing what it's doing.
But you can start making better choices right now. People come to this green market to recycle their clothes, shoes, and other fabric they're no longer using. I dropped by to meet Elizabeth Klein, the author of Overdressed, the shockingly high cost of cheap fashion.
One of the biggest issues with fashion right now is textile waste. We have 85% of all of unwanted clothing in the United States going directly into the landfill right now. One of the great alternatives to that is hosting clothing collection drives.
The items at this drive are collected and sorted out to reuse, or recycled to create new products like rags or insulation for buildings. And the green market is just one way to slow the negative impacts of fast fashion.
All the time I hear about new startups, new independent designers who are making really cool clothing that is sustainable and made with the garment worker in mind just as much as the fashion.
Checking out some sneakers. So I went across town to find a company doing just that. Veja is a sneaker brand that was recently featured in Vogue magazine. Emma Watson and Eddie Redmayne are just a few celebs who have been seen sporting the kicks, which also happen to be sustainably made.
And a lot of people don't know that about them just because they see the sneakers and are super excited to buy them because of the way they look.
Erin Allweiss is a spokesperson for the company.
And they're carried here at Anthem, they're carried at Club Monaco, Reformation, you can find them all over. They get shipped from Paris from an ethical shipping company there.
Veja works with artisans to ethically source different parts of the shoes, from the rubber on the soles to the organic cotton in the shoelaces. Some sneaker designs even use a material called B-Mesh, which is made of recycled water bottles.
Every time they think about a material, they determine how to make it as sustainable and clean as possible, and also making sure that the people making the sneakers are getting paid fairly.
Veja's mission includes not only transparency for customers, but a living wage for the company's partners.
What does it mean to be a living wage company?
It means that they take good care of the people who are making the shoes. This is a key component of Veja. It's the people who are making all of the different elements of the cool sneakers we're wearing.
A living wage is when workers are paid enough money to pay for their basic needs. Veja is just one of the fashion brands and influencers who are working to change the industry.
Why do you think this method of producing fashion is really needed right now?
I think we're all looking for ways to take action, and it does start with purchase power and what we wear.
And redesigning the fashion industry can start with the customer.
Every morning when we wake up, we have like $1 in our hand. We can use that dollar to invest in things that we care about. When people ask what you're wearing, you can say like, You can say the designer, but you can also say, by the way, it was made this way.
Redefining what it means to make a fashion statement. Asia Celestino, Channel 1 News.
Hey guys, it's Asia Celestino. Thanks so much for stopping by our YouTube channel. You can check out more videos right here. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another update from us.